Hi, I'd like to talk to you about transition in organizations and the power of coaching for transitions. There are 4 points I'd like to make in this video. The first is that transitions are very critical stages in the life of a leader and an organization. 2, transitions are very tough. 3, transitions need not be tough. And 4, what a transition coach does. Let's talk about why transitions are critical for the leader and the organization. When a leader is hired from outside by an organization, his ability to succeed is at best a hypothesis. When a leader is identified as having potential and is promoted from within for a larger responsibility, that assessment of potential and propensity to succeed is again at best a hypothesis. What are we doing for that hypothesis to become a reality? Unfortunately, very little. Very little is done to help a leader from outside settle in, despite the fact that organizations can spend almost a year searching for that leader, spend huge amounts of money to actually find that leader and bring that leader in. Similarly, when we promote someone from within, we might invest a lot of energy in assessing people and setting that person up for the new position, but enough is seldom done to help that person be set up for success. However, to assume that people will transition in smoothly is perhaps fallacious. So transitions are very critical, be it from one organization to another, one function to another, one level to another, one culture to another, one country to another. These are always tough. What is tough about transitions? Many things. Firstly, I will suddenly begin to work with an entirely new set of people whom I have to lead. I will now need to rework the relationship with my manager. I will need to re-establish relationships with peers whose support I require or whom I need to influence to get my work done. I will need to be careful about setting my priorities because so much is thrown at me. I will need to perhaps develop new skills to succeed in this new landscape. I may perhaps need to make changes in my own style to meet the demands of this role. And quite often, I may also need to give mind share to my family because quite often these changes have an impact on them and their lives. Now, while these are some of the typical demands of a transition, the transition itself can become complex for several reasons. One, I might be stepping into the shoes of a very illustrious predecessor, as is the case in family businesses. I might be getting into a role which has seen a string of failures in the last several years. I may be getting into an organization which expects me to bring about significant changes and transformation, while also telling me that I should find acceptance within the culture. I may be called upon to pivot a new strategy. I may be called upon to work with a set of people who are my peers whom I need to now lead. All of these can actually make transitions quite difficult. In addition to this, there might be certain development needs I must have addressed in the past, which I may not have addressed. So therefore, I'm carrying those missed developmental milestones. And finally, if I had certain pre-existing dispositions and conditions around my interpersonal relationships, views about authority, and so on and so forth, those can add to the difficulties in my transition. Therefore, when you put all this together, transitioning into a new role is a very complex process. But the good news is that it need not be complex. While the immediate manager is available, the immediate manager quite often, especially in senior cases, is not likely to handhold that leader through that process of transition. Beyond the point, the expectation is that, hey, you are a senior person, I expect you to take care of this yourself. Senior leaders may not also want to display their vulnerability within the organization setting. And this is where a transition coach can be a great sounding board, act as the rear and side viewing mirrors, and a place for dialogue and discussion about what this transition means, what are the sources of pressure and risks, what are the things I need to do, what do I need to pay attention to, and so on and so forth. So that the person has the opportunity to reflect, to dialogue, plan, and then in a much more sure-footed manner take the first few steps, so that in a 6-month period, typically the period of transition, the leader is able to take many deliberate, well-planned steps to settle down and find acceptance in the human organization that one is entering. Finally, transition is a human process, and therefore it needs human support to make the transition. A transition coach would work with the leader to brainstorm about what this means, to brainstorm about what strength she or he is bringing into this role that the person can rely on, brainstorm about things that are likely to be challenging, brainstorm about priorities that the person must pay attention to and the things the person may not want to pay attention to, new skills that the person may acquire, some mentoring relationships that might be useful, especially in areas of gaining historic perspective or functional expertise and so on and so forth. So that very quickly, over a 6-month period, the leader is well set up for success. I believe in transition coaching very deeply. I have been involved in supporting several leaders in that transition, and therefore I would really urge business leaders, human resources professionals to leverage the power of transition coaching to ensure that their hypothesis about success actually becomes a reality.